Hi, Groovy Kim here. I had someone ask me, how do you feel gratitude? I mean, maybe you're so down in the dumps or in so much pain, physically or mentally, that you just are having a hard time finding gratitude. That is the number one ingredient in meditation. In order for you to heal your body, you've got to find gratitude, or it doesn't manifest. You can manifest healing with medicines and surgery, but if you want to learn how I did it, connecting to the quantum field, you have to learn gratitude. So how do you do that when you don't feel it? One reason why people don't feel gratitude is they're carrying baggage around from their past. You know, I had a pretty tumultuous childhood where, I had a bad childhood. Let's just put it that way. I was stressed out for a long time. Most of my adult life, now that I look back on it, I realize I was stressed out all that time. I'm now in my 50s and I'm finally getting the hang of this thing. And what I learned was I had to let go of some of my old baggage from my past. And I had to literally, in my mind, forgive those who I thought had harmed me. And it doesn't really matter whether someone harmed you physically or mentally. The point is, if it emotionally scarred you somehow, it's the way you interpreted the situation. And if you're like me, you may be sensitive. And to be a sensitive doesn't necessarily mean that you're emotional. In fact, to be a sensitive means that you're highly sensitive. All your senses, your hearing, your sight, all of your senses, your taste, the way you can feel things in your environment are a little sharper than average people. And I'm a sensitive. And I didn't know it at the time, but when I was a little kid, I would interpret things in my environment much differently than my siblings. Much differently than my siblings, come to find out. And it just goes to show you that two people in the same environment can experience two very different things. So consequently, I was wounded, kind of like someone who's been, in a very abusive relationship, or like a soldier. When you see something traumatic, it can really mess up your chemistry in your system. And that causes stress, which then leads to inflammation, which then can differentiate in all different ways, including cancers, autoimmune diseases in my case, all kinds of different terrible things to your system when you have trauma. And like I say, that can be physical or mental. So in order to straighten that out and to learn how to heal yourself, which is why we're here, right? You're going to have to learn to forgive those people who have harmed you in your past. Now, in my case, it wasn't possible to forgive them personally. Do that if you want, but it's not necessary. In fact, it's much more necessary to do this in your mind. And in my case, I let the tears flow. I had to actually really honestly, from my heart, forgive those people who hurt me in my childhood. Once I did that, boy, that made getting grateful a whole lot easier. One way I was able to forgive those people who I deemed harmed me was to realize that they were harmed themselves in their childhood. As soon as I allowed myself to realize that their childhood must have really sucked as well, right? Or they wouldn't behave that way. It allowed me to forgive and to realize that, they're in just as much pain as I was. I'm thankful. I'm so thankful that I learned from them, because now I know what I don't want in my life. They're still living in pain. They probably always will, unless they learn the secret to life, which is you have to allow yourself to be grateful and teach yourself. It's like a skill. It's like riding a bike, especially if you don't know how. Some people grow up with people all around them being grateful all the time. I remember the first time I met someone who was grateful all the time. It was odd to me. That's not how we're built. Our quantum computer, which is your body, is built to be joyous and happy. And because when it is, curiously enough, you're healthier. It's because the vibration in your cells, the frequency in your cells, needs to be coherent. It needs to vibrate coherently, and it doesn't when you're unhappy, when you're stressed out. Check out my video called What's Your Vibration, where I go into a little more detail on this. It just doesn't vibrate coherently, and over time, that causes disease. So becoming grateful and joyous in your waking life is very important. You need to walk around and practice it, especially if you don't have the skill and you weren't born with it and your family didn't teach it to you, okay? It's not your family's fault. You need to forgive them because, after all, they weren't taught it either, right? So becoming grateful, that's key. And sometimes that means forgiving those in the past who trespassed against you. And like I say, it really doesn't matter whether it was physical or mental. It's trauma nonetheless, which ends up in the cells in your body because you store it there. So you got to let it go. You got to forgive. And then you can go about the business of learning how to be grateful and healing yourself. That's groovy.